So, hi, we're doing just a couple of supplemental videos, or I guess one video supplementing the Take Heart Love Grows cowl because I threw in a couple of cluster stitches in there. So first, when you look at the chart and you see these gray lines, that means there's actually no stitch there. And a lot of people are like, what, do I skip a stitch? No, there literally is no stitch. But they can sort of clutter up a chart. And so I didn't want to do like an overwhelming number of them. I just put them where they had to be. But these little clusters right here, right? Let me see if I can maybe just pull that up a little bit closer so you can see it. These little guys are these little heart buds that worked over 3 rows. And so your first row, you do or I should say rounds, knit one, yarn over, knit one. And then on your next round, when you get to those 3 stitches that you just made, you're just going to knit the 3 stitches. And then on the third round, you're going to do a center double decrease, bringing them all together. And this is what that little stitch looks like when all worked. And so it's really, it's kind of a cute little little bud. So I've sort of thrown them in all over this pattern, but I thought I would just show you to make sure you knew exactly what you were doing. The other one that's a little bit maybe not as clear on a chart as I would like it to be is also at the top of the hearts. And I'm just going to show you how that's done. So again, we're doing an increase of a knit one, yarn over, knit one, and then the symbol right above it is to symbolize that you will knit the first stitch through the back loop, purl the second, and knit the third stitch through the back loop. And that is, all written on it's in your key, it's in the written instructions, all of that. But because these symbols are used a little bit differently than standardly for charts, I just wanted to do this little video. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to get to a point in my knitting where I can show you these stitches, and I will be right back. Okay, so a knit one, yarn over, knit one, when you get to it, it's always going to be on one of these twisted ribs. But when you do the knit one, yarn over, knit one, you will not twist your knitting. You're going to come into the stitch, right? Knit it once, yarn over, back into the stitch, and knit it one more time. And you'll see that it gives you 3 stitches where there was 1, and you'll see that you have kind of a little bit of a hole right there. And that's normal. When you look at the finished stitches, you have it as well. And that's meant to be, that's part of the prettiness of that stitch. Just in case you are somebody who throws, let me just show that to you one more time. It's the same thing, right? We're going to come into the stitch and knit the stitch. Don't take it off, sorry. Bring your yarn forward for your yarn over, come into the stitch again, knit the stitch again, and take it off. And then you have your 3 stitches. I'm going to get to the 3 stitches on another one so I can show you what it'll look like when you get to it. Okay, so when you're coming up to that little stitch as you're knitting along, you'll see fairly clearly that there are 3 stitches sort of combined into one spot, right? And so you're going to go ahead and just work to that stitch, that cluster, I'm just going to call it. And you can see, don't drop them because it's a pain in the patootie to pick up, but you'll see the little stitches right there. And you're just going to go ahead and knit all 3 of those stitches. Then when you come back the next time, it's maybe a little harder to see when you're coming in to do the decrease over top. So if you have any trouble at all seeing these, I recommend using a locking marker and marking, the first stitch, holding all 3 of them together, something to where you can see that they're all marked together. I'll show you what the decrease is just as soon as I get to one. Okay, so as I'm coming back around to this stitch, I went ahead and threw a locking marker on there, so it's a little easier. I tend to like to mark the middle stitch, but you can mark any one of the stitches you want just so you could easily find it. And so once I get there, I'm going to just work in pattern right up to that cluster of 3. And then I will remove that marker so it doesn't get in my way. And now we're doing what's called a center double decrease, or an S2 KPO. And so that means we're going to slip these 2 stitches knitwise together, knit 1, and then we're going to pass those 2 stitches together over top. And it creates this really, really pretty right up the center decrease. Let me do that one more time in case you are a thrower. They're a little complicated to tink back, but you could kind of see, you just have to be a little bit patient with yourself. If you're throwing, you're going to slip those 2 stitches together knitwise, knit the next stitch, come back in, and pass those 2 slip stitches together over top of the stitch you just worked. And that gives you that little heart bud, as we're calling it, rosebud probably and other things, but we thought heart bud would be fun in this one. And now I'm gonna go ahead and get a little further along and show you a couple things on the hearts. Thanks. Okay, so in the chart, the entire heart motif is this little guy right here. Okay, maybe you can see it even better right there without all the other stuff. So you're starting with a knit one yarn over knit one, and then you're doing your little traveling stitches to create the heart. Then you do a cable stitch, right, the traveling stitch the other way in with some decreases and increases to get that shape. What it looks like when it's all done in your work is it looks like that little guy minus the feather. So it's kind of a cute, pretty little heart flower. So the very first thing that we do when we get to one is we do another knit one yarn over knit one. We've already seen that. There's nothing special about it. The only thing that I would tell you is to remember you're going to then have knit one yarn over knit ones that are at the base of the hearts, the base of the V of the heart, and of your rosebuds. And what you do on the following row will be different. So you should mark, if you're marking any of them, mark your hearts differently than your rosebuds because they're also both coming up from these stems. So that's just, something to help. I also recommend something like the highlighter tape. That's this little stuff right here. Or highlighters, I mean, or magnets or, all kinds of stuff, because this is a relatively large chart. And so it's helpful for you to sort of keep track. The other thing that you can do is you could like draw sort of lines down at places that make sense, sort of like right in there, and that will give you the ability to place markers right in spots that make sense in terms of separations, and then you can a little bit more clearly see where you are in your chart. Okay, so when you get back to this knit one yarn over knit one, when you're at the base of the heart, then you're going to knit it exactly as the chart is telling you, which is to twist the first stitch, pearl the second stitch, and twist the third. So that's all pretty straightforward, and you're doing your traveling stitches. So I'm just going to sort of get you up to this level on one of the heart flowers and just walk you through some things to think about with this. Thanks. So as you're working your little heart flowers, you're going to see, right, you'll come up to them. This was our original knit one yarn over knit one. This is the traveling stitches that are coming up on each side. And the edge stitches are always knit through the back loop. And then your center of the heart flower is still going to be, right, pearl stitches. And then your little traveling stitches are always going to be knit through the back loop. Okay, so just a little bit of thought for you also on working these little heart flowers. When you're working a chart, remember that the chart represents the row after it's done. So this little traveling stitch right here that has a pearl over here and a twisted stitch on the side, and you see 4 pearl stitches here, that means you're going to work your 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, we're going to come all the way over here. Your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pearl stitches. So 1, 2 from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 pearl stitches. And you'll have 1 pearl stitch left, right? And it'll look like you are wrong in where you're supposed to be, but you're not, because this pearl stitch is actually the one that's involved in the cable. Okay, the other thing is, you can use a cable needle to do these little traveling stitches, but you don't have to because it's just little 1-stitch switches. So you could just insert the right-hand needle into the, if we're crossing in the front, into the second stitch. You're going to slide both off, and then you just come back here and grab that little stitch in the back, and you put it up on your needle. You're going to be twisting the first stitch so you can knit it right in the back loop, purling the second stitch, and then you're purling all the way 1, 2, 3 stitches, and that's your 1, 2, 3 purls. And now to work my other cable, I'm going to be taking, and your traveling stitches are always the twisted stitches, right? So I'm going to take that little twisted stitch, and at this time I'm going to grab the back stitch first from behind because I want that cable to twist over in the front. This goes on my needle and I purl it through the front loop, knit the second one through the back loop, and my traveling stitches of my heart flower are done. I'm going to come back and show you that center stitch here on the next round. Okay, we're back to our heart again. So this time we're just twisting the side stitches and we're going to do the increase in the middle, the knit one yarn over knit one again to get that center of the stitch. So I twist that first stitch, purl 2, and then on my third one, coming in, knitting, yarning over, and knitting, right? That should feel incredibly familiar to you by now, but that's what we're doing. And then we'll finish it with, of course, a purl 2 and twisting that last stitch. Okay, and then I think that just 2 more rows of some interesting stuff on this and you should be good to go. Okay, so we're back to the heart again. And now we can identify our 3 middle stitches. And so this time we're gonna work that very first stitch through the back loop. I'm gonna go ahead and purl my 2 stitches right here. And then I'm to my 3 middle stitches. And on my chart, I have this sort of V stitch that's written right there. And that is going to represent, that one block represents these 3 stitches. And we're going to knit the first one through the back loop, purl the second one, and knit the third one through the back loop. And I did it that way because we're going to just immediately get rid of those new stitches again. And again, I just didn't want, otherwise we'd have like 5 million of these little no stitch things, which is sort of challenging to look at. So I'm going to come right back up and show you those decreases just one more time. Not that that's really hard to figure out from there, but just to finish the heart flower for you. Okay, so we are back to our heart flower, and you can see the beginning of the V in the middle happening. And so we're now at the point where we're going to sort of close these together. So we do it first with a left leaning cable. So I'm just going to come in and grab that stitch from behind, grab that stitch from the front, purl the outside stitch, knit this one through the back loop, and then I'm going to knit 2 together, these 2 stitches. I sat there and thought I could maybe make that twist, and I worked on it and blah, 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 but it just made it really hard. And I actually did it again, and I thought you really can't tell. So I left those untwisted. If you feel like twisting them, rock on with your bad selves. It's your pattern, your cowl, I should say. So then I'm going to, on my second half of it, I'm going to start with a decrease right here of an SSK and then do my right leaning cable. So I'm just going to move that first stitch off purlwise, second stitch, let me try that again. First stitch off knitwise, second stitch off purlwise, enter the front, work the 2 together. And then to get my right leaning cross over here, I'm going to take the left stitch off first, right? And I'm going to put that little guy right back on the back needle. And I sort of split it a little bit. Okay, put this back on, and I'm going to go ahead and knit that one through the back loop, purl the next one, and you can see how the top of that heart is sort of coming together. Okay, and then the very last thing that you'll do on the next row, which is super self-explanatory, is you'll knit these 2 together, you'll do an SSK right there, and that will finish at the top of the heart to where they just come together at that point. So hopefully that was all a little bit helpful to you, and have fun making it.